Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 30th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You got Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia off to the right here. This is the Pacific Ocean, and you can see this ridging off our coastline and over the Pacific Northwest. Some high and mid-level clouds moving over that. Some precipitation still occurring with this weak frontal passage moving down across British Columbia and Alberta, and you can see the very cold air up across portions of northern Canada and towards Alaska. These bright blues here and these light blues that are not moving, that is measuring the ground surface there. And you can see these cloud tops moving across the Pacific Ocean. It's measuring those cloud tops as well. The very cold temperatures there in the upper levels of the atmosphere. But yeah, it's kind of interesting there with the infrared satellite imagery showing some of the cooler temperatures at the surface up there. But in the meantime, down here, we've got some foggy conditions here and not much going on weather-wise. But we're going to take a look at the extended forecast and what is causing probably this ridging here off the west coast of North America as we go through the video this morning. Taking a look here, you can see some of that more dense fog across just west of Tacoma, Olympia there, some of the Kitsap Peninsula, and then you can see the mountains. They're pretty clear right now. You see Mount Rainier there, and then you see the extensive fog across some of the Willamette Valley and some of the coastal valleys there also. And across some of the Columbia Basin, there's some foggy conditions as well. So storm reports, nothing going on, nothing to report back there. We do have some air stagnation advisories out there, and we're going to be dealing with that for the next few days. Also, here we go with Portland National Weather Service and the Willamette Valley. We've got some foggy conditions out there. And again, I would just watch out for the sneaker waves if you're going on the Washington or Oregon coast, Vancouver Island, just as a general rule. So Spokane, Washington. They do mention these isolated flurries out there. It might just be some of that lower level moisture trapped there in the inversion falling down. So if you see any of those slick conditions, you know what to do. Just slow down. And this is Medford, Oregon, talking about at least Wednesday, December 4th, the air stagnation issues and, of course, the beach hazard statements. There's some frost and freeze advisories out there. Freeze warning. And some of this fog, especially eastern portions, could be freezing fog at times. Use your low beams. You guys know what to do. Slow down a little bit. Now, looking at the European, this is visibility, and you can see we got BC, Washington, Oregon. You see the fog through the Willamette Valley as we go through this morning. Some of the Puget Sound here and some portions east. We break out a bit here as we go through the day today, but as we go through Sunday morning, you see that fog redevelop for some areas. Break out a bit. We're going to be going through this reoccurring pattern here over the next few days. Monday morning yet again with that fog. If we scroll far enough out, you can kind of see a weak frontal system trying to approach as we go towards Wednesday night into Thursday. We'll be watching that one and see what that is going to bring. Also, it might stir things up a little bit. But if we take a look there at the 6-hour precipitation and type, you see that snow continuing as we go on into about Sunday here north. And then you can kind of see this weak system still hanging around mainly north of Vancouver Island. No precipitation for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, or Montana for the most part here. And southern BC, not getting much also. And then we scroll on in towards Thursday. You see that weak frontal system is just absolutely falling apart by the time it gets here. But maybe it'll stir things up a little bit. Now, if we take a look at 6-hour snow, I just want to kind of drive home this point where this precipitation is occurring. I'm scrolling through the loop here, and one more time, and you can see maybe a little bit trying to reach down into southern BC, the Washington Cascades, but not much to write home about. Now, if we take a look at the wider view of the Pacific Ocean, we have the Hawaiian Islands here. We have Washington State, and there's Oregon to the right. Japan is all the way to the left. There's Alaska right there across the center portion. Now, if I put this into motion, I'm going to let this scroll through here pretty quick a couple times, and you can see there's the loop repeating. You can see the ridge here. West coast of North America, kind of keeping us dry for the Pacific Northwest, obviously. And you'll see you're dealing with some lower than normal heights here across some of the Western Pacific, and that could be due to the Madden-Julian oscillation. It does look a little bit La Nina-ish with the ridge trying to develop here, but it is a bit too close here to allow for some of that cooler air to make it down in towards the Pacific Northwest and bring some of those systems with it. So this is probably a phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. So we can look into that a little bit more here as well. This is 200 millibars, about 39,000 feet up in the atmosphere. And you notice that jet stream is out here across the Western Pacific. And again, we got the ridging downstream, as you can see. So as these phases change and that tropical convection moves across the tropics, it can influence these Rossby waves and the jet stream and eventually move this where it starts to affect things across Pacific Northwest more. But when is that going to occur? That is the good question. And this is what's known as the Madden-Julian Oscillation Index here. So what we're looking at here is the GFS on the right, European on the left. And you can see as we went through phase 8, 1, and 2, this is circling the entire planet here. I should drive home that point. And when the Madden-Julian Oscillation is inside that circle, it's considered more of an inactive phase, and the further it gets out is more of an active phase. So right now we are in we're in phase 3 moving into phase 4 as of right now, and the GFS has it going more towards an inactive phase, and the European kind of keeps it in phase 5. But until this changes, we may be in this ridging for a while. So it could be helping enhance some of the ridging here for the west coast of North America. And you can kind of see this reflected here. This is a running timeline, starts at September 1st, and this is the forecast all the way through December 21st. So this Madden-Julian Oscillation here that is emerging out across the Indian Ocean is probably helping and moving over the maritime continent. As we go to 120 east, you can see maritime continent right there. There's Japan and Australia. So it's setting up right there. And that may be what's helping driving the ridging downstream over the Pacific Northwest. So there may be a little bit here before we get out of this pattern. And if I take a look at the mean sea level pressure on the European, you can kind of see why this leads to fog. We're not going to be pressure gradient, not precipitation, across the region, and you can kind of see that why we're going to be in some of these stagnant conditions as I scroll all the way on in through Monday here. Now we're going on to Tuesday morning. Let it scroll through, and you can see not much change in our pattern here as we go on in through about Thursday. And I do like to show some visual diagrams of what is going on. You can see the Arctic air generally locked up to the north. If I play this through, you can see the diurnal cycle and that Arctic air kick off to the east and stay north of the Rocky Mountains. But watch what happens about hour 70. You can see, look how chilly Alberta is here. But then watch as I scroll through about hour 60, 70. You see the warm up there. Let's get some compression winds off the Rocky Mountains. They're known as the Chinook winds, warming things up. So it's not just locked in an ice box the entirety of the later portions of fall and winter for Canada. You can see some of those temperatures changing there. And this is 24-hour temperature change, just kind of driving home that point. You'll see the warmer conditions in some places warming up by 20 degrees or so in a 24-hour period, just kind of showing you the Chinook wind process there. And one of the most boring maps in the history of weather here, you can see this is the North American continent. We are looking at 2-meter dew point in Fahrenheit. You can see that you've got the more moist conditions, of course, out over the water, and especially the tropical areas. And if I put this into motion, you can see how the landmass is cooled down here as we go on into the later portions of fall. And yeah, a lot of dry air around here. You can kind of see how that exists generally over the North American continent itself. Now, taking a look at 10-meter wind gusts, I want to show you this one here because this is kind of interesting. I'm going to scroll through this, and this is the North American high-resolution models. But if I scroll through, you see some of these. This is exposing where some of our terrain gaps are across some of the coastal range of the Oregon coast. The gorge right there. And if I keep going here, you'll see the Fraser River Valley right there, northwest Washington, back up into British Columbia. You also see the Stampede Gap right here with some gustier winds. And then you can kind of see the winds coming out across the Strait of Juan de Fuca and back through the Chehalis Gap out of the east. So this kind of exposes where some of our terrain features are. And these come into play when we do get some Arctic air around or some gusty winds, both west and east across the region. So I thought I'd play that through 60-hour loop there, back and forth. Now, this is Seattle, Tacoma, and this is what is known as a sounding. So we're looking at three-dimensional look of the atmosphere. So as we scroll through this morning, kind of see how we're dealing with the inversion, a little bit of warmer temperatures aloft versus at the surface, or versus what it's normally supposed to be. But as we scroll on in through Sunday morning, you'll see we're down here at the surface, right? You can see we're condensed. That temperature line is meeting up with the dew point. That means you're dealing with the atmosphere that is going to be, possibly foggy out there. And then you can see the inversion above. Once you get up, just a few hundred feet or a couple thousand feet, you're looking at some very warm temperatures. So that helps trap that inversion at the surface. We have light winds at the surface, so it doesn't help mix things out. So we get stuck in this pattern until a storm system can come along and clear us out. But as we go through Monday morning, notice the temperature line drop down below zero there for SeaTac. So that could be some freezing fog across some of the area there as we go on in through very early Monday morning. So I have to watch out for that. But you notice how dry the air gets aloft. Look at the difference between the dew point and the temperature aloft across SeaTac there once you get up with any altitude. But at the very surface there, we're trapped in that lower level inversion with the fog. Now, this is looking at the Pacific North American positive oscillation. This is Pacific North American negative. And here we go at the GFS. You can see we're supposed to remain in positive as we go through the first week of December. And then maybe a pattern change coming as we get towards the mid portion of December as well. And something similar here with the GFS also. You can see somewhere towards the mid portion of December, things will probably be changing up. Of course, we're not going to remain in this pattern for the entirety of winter. This doesn't look great, though. 15-day precipitation anomaly. This is the European ensemble as of yesterday afternoon. You can clearly see the bullseye, but again, the sharp gradient cut off there, so you still take that with a grain of salt right now. But it doesn't look great over the next 10-day period or so, and this is the GFS ensemble, so yeah. But you can see before that pattern change potentially comes, not dealing with much precipitation. Now, this is a wider look at things again here. This is 500 millibar heights, and this is the extended forecast. This thing goes out 46 days, and they run it once a day. So if we put this in motion, you can see as we go through the third, actually this is the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. You can kind of see this ridge dominating our weather as we go through December 12th, 11th, 12th. And then we kind of get an interesting system here. This would be a bit chilly, and that could bring some interesting weather, and that's right around December 14th. If we continue to scroll off into the future, you can see we do have a few systems trying to slide through at that time period, and then it might be still a long transition. But look, as we get out towards the end of December here, we're looking at December 23rd, 24th, 25th. Maybe we'll have some fun here as we get towards the Christmas time period, and then we scroll off into the extended forecast. Another ridge wants to come through, but you got some interesting signal out here for some more northerly flow as you get towards the end of the year. But this is just me nerding out a bit here, and we're just kind of taking a look at what may be coming off through the future. You can see some fun stuff maybe on in through January, but this is purely for entertainment purposes only. I just kind of like to look and show some of the products that are available. This is the 6 to 10 day. Of course, this is here and now, as we're not here and now, but definitely not the fantasy extended forecast I just showed you. Here we go, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook through December 9th. That should make sense. That's what we're looking about. And this may not even come to fruition just because some areas are going to be trapped under the inversion, so you might not even be dealing with above average temperatures, but some areas will be dealing with some sunny afternoons in this foggy regime. Now, 6 to 10 day, they keep showing this here, and I don't know about that. You know, we'll see how that trends, but you can see the below average signal here. We do get a lot of precipitation at this time of year, and I would be very surprised if we're going to be above average. So I'm not sure what the Climate Prediction Center is pointing to there, but here's the 8 to 14 day, and then again kind of this above normal signal that does include some of the Pacific Northwest, and I don't think that is going to be the case, but there's that below normal signal that does dominate much of the west. And this is something interesting as well. So if I scroll this up a little bit, let me try to get there. So this is October 29th, what we're looking at right here. You can see we had some severe and some moderate drought across Washington, some moderate across Oregon, but look at some of the extreme and exceptional across portions of western Montana. So we scroll through to the latest on November 26th. You can see some improvement there. Not much for western Montana, but we did remove some of that severe drought across Idaho Panhandle and portions of Idaho. We removed the severe drought across Washington, and we really limited a lot of that moderate drought. We took away a lot of the moderate drought for Oregon too, and a lot of the abnormally dry is now gone. But the flip side to that is if we do remain dry for a 2-week period here coming up, we're going to start to bring some of that drought concern back again, and it might not show itself until next spring. Well, that depends on what happens this winter, but kind of an interesting flip there. Nice to see that. But yeah, anyway, so thought I'd go over some interesting stuff here just for entertainment purposes only on the extended forecast there with the European model, but something fun to look at during these slower periods. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. We will do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.